Okay. Now we're recording. But thank you. Reminding me. God, why can't I remember that? I used to have my note right here and still forgot.
We had to put a note, C note.
I go C note. Cover my screen with it. Do not proceed without recording. All right. Sansho's golden carp. Case 33, Book of Equanimity. Preface to the assembly. Encountering strength, one is meek. Encountering tenderness, one is tough. When two strengths collide, there is always damage. Tell me, how should they accommodate each other? Main case. Attention. Sansho asked Seppo, "A golden carp passes through the nets. I wonder what he has for food." Seppo said, "I'll wait until you get out of the net, then I'll tell you." Sansho said, "A good teacher of 1,500 monks doesn't even know what we're talking about." Seppo replied, "For this old monk, as head of the temple, affairs do multiply." Appreciatory verse. At first, ascending the three waterfalls, clouds and thunder both give the send-off. Jumping, leaping splendidly, this great function is seen. Burning his tail, he clearly passes beyond the gate of WaYu. Fine fish are never kept in a pickle jar. The mellow old man does not startle the crowd. Used to meeting great opponents, he is fearless from the start. Flapping as slightly as a flag in the wind, he weighs more than 1,000 pounds. Flapping as lightly as a flag in the wind. His name is known across the 4 seas. Is anyone his equal? Though the 8 winds blow, he stands alone, unmoved. So, Sansho thought he was all that and the golden carp. The golden carp passing through the net is a metaphor for becoming enlightened or getting through the koan study, getting through, having that enlightenment experience. And he's, being a little braggadocious about that. And Seppo answers in a way that keeps him in check. Well, if you're sitting here bragging about it, you're not through. So when you're through, then we'll talk about what food there is for you. And Sansho comes back with, you don't think that I've gotten this done? You don't know what we're talking about. And Seppo, again, not only replies to keep him in check, but sets an interesting example, I think. Because he says, "For this old monk, as head of the temple, affairs do multiply. I am way too busy for this foolishness, and as the head of this monastery, I set the example of what you need to be doing. So you too should be too busy for this conversation. So you've gotten all this. So you've passed through all these gateless gates, these barriers, these hindrances, and you've accomplished something." And so did the Buddha. The Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree until he came to this realization. But that was not what the Enlightenment does. There's the experience of the Enlightenment, and then there's the work of Enlightenment. What are you going to do with that realization? And what the Buddha did was got up and taught. What Seppo did was took care of the monastery, took care of his 1,500 monks. What Seppo's doing is sitting there wallowing in his tiny little experience. So something for him to think about, an example for him to follow. And so this is, as Shishin says, this is about skillful means. How is Seppo going to respond to Sancho? How do you respond to each situation? How do you if someone walks up to you and says, you know, I'm an enlightened being. How do you respond? My response would be, so what?
So what?
What does that do for you? What does it do for me that you are an enlightened being? Because it shows up. It's not in what people say about themselves, or how people pronounce their existence in the world is one thing. How they show up and what they do is something else. So, the Buddha did a lot of work after he had his enlightenment experience. So did obviously Seppo. All the great teachers did, and Sansho did eventually too. They're both great teachers. Dogen, he had his enlightenment experience and then told his teacher not to acknowledge his enlightenment experience because he was past it already, and brought Zen to Japan as a result. So we have these experiences, these little epiphanies, these ongoing realizations, and that's one part of the practice. But then what? What are you going to do with it? How does it show up? How do you show up? And how do we teach? Because we all teach. We teach by what we do. We teach by what we say. We teach by what we respond. How are we taking care of each situation? Because each situation is different. Each student is different. Each practitioner is different. Each person is different. How do we not rubber stamp our responses to people's claims? I often wonder if, what outcomes might have been better had someone actually stepped in and taken care of those looksmaxers on YouTube, because obviously they're dealing out of some level of insecurity.
Who's what?
The looksmaxers,
What's the looks like?
they're the people who are hammering their faces to make them look a certain way.
Oh,
You haven't heard, it's on TikTok, it's all over. They're just bizarre.
What do I know?
So I only see the critics of them. I don't have TikTok, so I don't watch their reviews. Their reels, but I watch the critics of them, and it's just bizarre what people are doing to look good, to maximize their looks. And some people have done some permanent damage. And I look at that, I'm like, this, it's not about your looks. There's something else going on there. There's something deeper going on there. Who is taking care of you?
I'll let you know when I get my face perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
The clock is ticking.
Yeah, so yeah, and they're going to age and not they're going to not look that way because they're all in their 20s trying to look like movie stars or with their version of perfect. So what is that about? How are we responding to that? How are we taking care of these people that are presenting themselves as influencers in the world? Because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of responsibility that we have, and and especially in the Zen school. Zen school is not an easy way to live because we strip away all of your security, strip away all of your certainty, and leave you in emptiness. And then what? So there's you now have 100% of the responsibility of creating your life. You also have, because you have 100% freedom to create your life any way you want. And that amount of freedom comes with a lot of responsibility. So we're used to all, life's meanings and purpose usually coming from what we think is external to us. Our parents, raised us in a particular way. The schools we went to raised us in a certain way. The society we live in tells us we can do certain things or not do certain things. And this practice takes all of that and says, not that it's gone, but carefully question it. Is it real? Is it really appropriate? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But you're not stuck. You're not, completely bound by what people tell you are. So you are freed from those constraints. But what next? What do you do with that freedom?
So that's a tenth of an inch of difference, and heaven and earth is set apart in that sentence you just gave us, because what one of those kids would say, I think, is, you just affirmed that I can do anything and be anything I want. I want to look like the best version of me that I can come up with in my 19-year-old brain. And it looks like this, and the Zen master just told me I could do that. That was, I'm free,
Yeah.
I always look at these things through the lens of a parent, and my children said, hey, I'm doing this thing, I really want to look like this picture, or whatever. I would start with, what's underneath that?
Yeah.
What's going on with you? And what happens if the picture changes and your face is, how does that, in some ways that's how I feel about a lot of the tattooing that's going on. Is,
Oh, yeah.
Good today, but what happens when you change?
Yeah. Because that tattoo's not going to be in the same place it was when you put it there when you were 20 years old.
Right. Especially the ones with the barbed wire across the biceps.
It's now on your wrist.
Yeah.
It'll all hit out.
Yeah. Yeah, gravity will have its way with you. There is. So yes, and that's often the problems. I think that's when with this practice, we have to be careful. We have to be very compassionate with ourselves and with others. And there are sometimes when you have to back off. If someone is not responding or not taking responsibility for the freedom that they have, or has taken this meaninglessness and given it meaning like I can do anything, or I can kill myself, or I can you can do harm, and that is a dangerous place. That is that is what we've seen happen with people who get stuck in emptiness, is they cause harm because they then call it skillful means, and that's the danger. So how are we taking care of ourselves and others with this realization? And I honestly think that there are some people who wouldn't do this very well, who wouldn't handle this freedom very well. And obviously they're being depicted all over social media. There are people who are not handling their freedoms very well. They're causing greater harm to themselves and to others because they're out there doing this to themselves, and people are emulating their behavior. Without questioning it. So this whole, I think there is something to be said for teaching critical thinking. What is this going to do? What's the impact that this is going to have? Because yes, nothing has any intrinsic meaning, but everything has impact. Karma is always attached to anything and everything that we do. So how do we take care of that? How do we take care of karma? And Seppo clearly is not putting up with this foolishness. It's like, dude, we got work to do. Why are you in here bragging about your enlightenment? Because that was however long ago it was. It's past. What are you doing now? What are you doing today? How are you? What example are you giving for these 1,500 monks that you're here? And Seppo is setting that example for this old monk as head of the temple. Affairs do multiply.
Well, I think the other point, I don't know if that book or in the particular record, but they talk about, how sort of something that also applies to nonviolence, where you sort of take the strength of the other person, or jujitsu, and use it kind of in a different way, translate the energy. So Seppo, at the last encounter, instead of coming head on and saying, no, you're not that.
Yeah.
Just says, I got work to do.
Yeah.
And you should too.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the first things they teach, at least when I took the few weeks of Aikido that I took, because my schedule changed, so I wanted to learn Aikido, but didn't have a chance. The first thing that I learned in that class for the weeks I was there was how to fall.
Yeah, right. Same thing with karate. Same thing with karate.
Karate is the same thing. So, and this is what Seppo does. He doesn't give this person who's coming in for dharma combat any place to a resistance. So he just moves out of the way and says, I'll wait till you get out of the net. First he checks him. He says, you're not done. You've got work to do. Then he says, I'm busy. Yo no tengo tiempo para ti. I ain't got no time for you. I used to know how to say that in 5 different languages. I think I've forgotten the other ones. So yeah. So that's the lesson here is how are we showing up? What are the lessons? What is the example? The how do we describe this last week? The seduction. What was the word you used for emptiness?
Oh gosh, that was last week.
Yes, it was.
He's got a new
The
word.
transcendent simplicity.
Yes,
It
transcendent.
may not hit the same way it hit last week.
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is. Transcendent simplicity. It's past
Something
us.
that's eminently desirable.
But yeah, but that's the seduction of the practice, is that it is deceptively simple, because all you're doing is sitting and breathing. And so we think that's, I can do that. And as a result of that sitting and breathing, we have these very deep experiences. It's like, I want to hold on to that. And then we get stuck there, because that does feel good. It is seductive in that sense. It does feel, it's wonderful to be released from the constraints that we thought we had. And that's getting through the gateless gate, because we never had those constraints. They weren't real. We either accepted them as coming from the outside and that we should do them, or we made them up for ourselves and have tried to live out of them, but they were never real. And so once you're released of that, and that very simple freedom of everythingness is then accessible to you, and it's like, okay, time and time again, people have described that the minute they have that experience and and then they want to get back to it because it fades, it goes away. It's temporary. You can't stay there because life, this practice is about being in the constant now, the constant flow of now. And that flow of now never stops. It continues. And trying to hang on to a wave, that has long passed, just doesn't work. But we keep trying to recapture those experiences that we have on the cushion, and they're not there anymore. They were there for that moment. You learn from it, and then you have to move on. So the golden carp passing through the nets, yeah, good for you. Now what?
I once had the audacity to mention to one of these guys who know about these things. I thought enlightenment was overrated. And he came back with, damn, delusion is underrated.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because I've always thought that, our delusions or ignorance is much more interesting as a pursuit for a lifetime, and that's my study.
Yeah.
As much as I can.
Yeah.
I need to work more on myself. But I do see that, in some cases it's exponentially incommensurate. The difference between the way people get hung up in things and what it would take for them to make that change.
Yeah.
It's exponentially incommensurate.
Yeah.
Hard work.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think that's what work is.
Yes, I completely agree. Because every day you have to go out and deal with delusion. Mm-hmm. So, and I think I would add to his comment of delusion being underrated is the awareness of delusion that's underrated. Because most people live in delusion and have no problems with it. But once you're aware that it is delusion, the tendency is to now want to distance yourself from it. There's no way to get out of it. There's really no way out of the net. It's the awareness of what the net is and being able to use the net effectively. Because now once you have that awareness of what delusions are, you can now use it as a tool rather than it using you. And that's the I think probably the best tool that you can do, because you're dealing with levels of delusion every minute of every day. Unless you're off secluded in the mountains, not dealing with anything at all, so that's.
It's impossible.
Yeah. Well, there are people who do it.
I mean, you could
For
be
sure.
mountain doing stuff.
But they usually only do it for short periods of time. And then they have to come back and deal with normal people.
I have a question. It may have been partially answered in this discourse, but I wanted to get it straight from Sibu's mouth. You mentioned the mistakes, barriers, and hindrances.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on you said that these hindrances and barriers were never real. So could you define what you mean by real, that they never were, and then if this is the never real, then what is the real?
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, we make up all kinds of stories, and they usually show up as excuses for not doing stuff. For I can never be as great as so and so. I can never be like I can never accomplish my dreams. I can never do all kinds of stuff that I want to do. Here's my list of reasons. Not enough time. It's usually not enough time, not enough money, or not enough talent, or whatever excuses we make up. And we create these barriers for ourselves. Or we have accepted barriers that were pronounced upon us from society, parents, the world. So you know, and I think that and people usually lump groups into it. You can't do this because you're a woman. You can't do this because you're too short. You can't do this because, you know, there are all these categories of people that people lump together, and then we hear that or take it in, and we either accept it or we don't. So it feels like it comes from the outside, like there are these real restrictions that we have to deal with. And certainly we're restricted by perhaps being human, because there's only so much that a human being can do. A human being can never be an elephant, at least not in this lifetime. So there are some real restrictions in that sense, but the stories that we make up about why we are a certain way or why we can't be a certain way are usually just that. Thus, we hang on to our various proclivities and addictions and excuses, and can act out of them. Those are not real. Those are stories that we've either made up ourselves or accepted as being real. And this practice will bring that to light, that they're not real, that they are just stories. And we have the freedom to change that narrative at any given point. The work is, what do we do with that new narrative? Or usually we get stopped with, oh, it's not real, but then we don't take the next step and decide what new we will now create as a result of being released from the trappings of that excuse. So that next step is usually what's missing. People will have the realization. And, you know, this may be an apocryphal story. There was a story of Intention has told this a couple of times as Dharma talks, about a woman who came to this realization of this absolute freedom that she had, and then she stripped off her clothes and she ran around the Zen center, just expressing her freedom, and then she was never seen again. So we don't know what she did with that realization. So she had this reaction to that experience on the cushion, expressed it, and then left. Obviously, running around naked is probably not something she can do every day. It's not a practice that she can continue in public anyway. But what did she? But the deeper part of that realization is she was released from the stories. Released from.
So that's what's real, being released from the stories?
Yeah.
That's what's real, seeing through?
Yeah, seeing through the stories.
Seeing through what's unreal is what's real.
Yeah. Well, it's one part of it. So one part of that is seeing through it. But then what do you do?
Then you have to act on
Yeah.
your realization.
Right. So in a sense, you know, these looks masters on TikTok have seen through. I'm not stuck looking the way I look like. I can make myself look differently.
Right.
But, you know, they didn't go deep enough, obviously. There's something else. If you're so stuck on that kind of superficial expression, and yes, it is a barrier that you think that your looks are stopping you from getting somewhere, because they want to look a certain way because they want, I mean, his whole thing is about getting girls. So he wanted to date the cheerleaders, you know. He's just out of high school, but they're the model-like looking women, so he needed to look better himself. So that was his point of view. But what's underneath that? And so yes, he's released from the story of having his looks stop him from doing that. But what did he do with that? With being released from it? You know, his way of channeling it was to take a hammer to his face to make his jaw look more square. So, I certainly I can have all kinds of judgments about that. So one part of it is, you're not stuck with the restrictions that we tell ourselves that we have by these superficial considerations. But what are you going to do with that realization? How is that going to now show up, and what impact does that have on the rest of the world? Sancho's sitting at her, comparing himself to the golden carp. But what work is he doing around the monastery that needed to be done? If he's indeed this now advanced Zen practitioner, how does that show up? And I tell people, and Seppo sets this example: the higher you go up in the hierarchy in Zen, the more demoted you are, the more of service you are expected to be. And the more temporary he should have recognized his realization was. So the golden carp got out of one net and jumped right back into another one.
Well, they jumped into the net of, in order to get X, I have to look a certain way. And then they find out that the cheerleader they were interested in is just dating the ugliest guy in the senior class, but he makes her laugh.
Yeah.
And he's got a great personality, and she loves that,
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, now what? I changed my face to be what I thought beauty was or attractiveness was, and there it is.
Yeah. And he's done permanent damage to himself as a result.
But it also is a commentary on what the ultimate result of social media is.
Yeah.
We have socialized everything to be a certain way, or I hate this, living my best life scenario. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
But
Hashtag best life.
what?
Hashtag best life.
Hashtag. Yeah.
So he's living his best life because his face now looks like Rock Hudson or what have you.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just amazingly sad that this is where we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, unfortunately, I don't think TikTok or social media is showing us anything that didn't already exist, but we're just seeing it because we have access to it.
No, I mean, is anybody happier for having their,
It's
social
an
media?
accelerant.
Yeah.
It's an accelerant. That's the part, and it gets the kids so much younger.
Yeah.
When they're most vulnerable, especially in middle school students, it really messes with their ability to develop socialization that is person-centered, meaning physical presence and interaction on physical present level.
Yeah.
On the other hand, middle school, for a lot of kids, is just soul crushing, and it's for a lot of especially smart kids, it's the worst time of their life, and it's when trauma and problems begin because of what socialization with kids is like. And so
the kids are mean.
It's being stuck between a rock and a hard place where you can be with kids in school, and that can be a terrible experience. You can be on social media, which feels like a better experience. And I think that it's deeper than social media is a problem.
Yeah, and I think it always has been. I don't think, I think there's always been trauma with, as kids grow up and learn to socialize with people, because people are some people are nice and some people are not.
And kids haven't
And
learned to be
yeah,
nice people yet.
they haven't learned to be nice people. And there's the whole range from one to the other, that kids grow up and figure out how to navigate that, and then you add social media on top of that, and you've got all kinds of influences going on. So people have always been concerned about their books and these very superficial things, and it's good for kids to learn that they're not hindered by that. They think they are, but to help people get rid of their stories, of their hindrances in that way, is a good thing, but it's only one part of what needs to happen. Because once you're freed from those hindrances, once you're through the net or out of the net, now what? How now? Since all of these things that you thought were restrictions for you are really not restrictions, what do you do? What do you do with that freedom? I think that what this school, what our practice is about taking that freedom and turning it into service for others, saving all sentient beings. That's the vow we take. That's the job we give ourselves. And it's an impossible vow, and so we give ourselves this impossible job to do, because that's the freedom we have and the responsibility that we have, that we can now take on as a result of now being through hindrances. And the Bodhisattvas is that example of helping everybody else get to nirvana or get rid of their hindrances, and we're the last to go. Because we make sure everyone else gets through first, and then we go.
It's impossible, but it's, as a practical matter, available at every moment that we are out there.
Absolutely.
In the marketplace.
Yeah. And that's our responsibility every moment. So it's not like we get to this level of levitating 2 inches off the ground, and now someone is bringing us peeled grapes and a limousine. It requires that we do more. With this great amount of freedom comes a greater amount of responsibility, and it's and this is a difficult practice in that sense. So because it gets rid of all of your certainty, gives you this absolute freedom, and gives you the responsibility of doing with that freedom the least amount of harm possible. Because you can do harm. You can do a tremendous amount of harm with this kind of freedom.
Did you say that the first thing was it takes away all your certainty?
Certainty, yeah.
And then do the greatest amount of good with the least amount of certainty.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Come on.
That's your job description. Do the greatest amount of good with the least amount of certainty. Well, and no reward, certainly.
That makes it easier.
That makes it easier.
I also think today's enlightenment experience is tomorrow's delusion.
Well, if you're hanging on to it, yeah.
I mean, it's like, yeah. So
I just worry that poor boy might end up with a cheerleader. No offense, but I mean, like, what do you get? You get a person, and you get an image.
Yeah. And then what's he going to do 20 years from now, when all the looks are faded, and they've transformed into something else?
What's he doing now? I mean, it's a mindset. It's a chasing after an idea of something that someone has told you ought to be or look like or do.
Yeah.
And so it's every day. It's every moment. They're doing that. Social media is telling you, eat this oatmeal, don't eat that oatmeal.
Yes.
So, I don't know. Fortunately, I don't think my kids are into that. But it's super scary. That's why I don't do social media.
It was perfect, kind of like father. Our field was prepared, and that we for young people, we've developed this whole idea of social hierarchy and image and perfection. And then when social media came on, it allowed that to feed into that.
Yeah.
But there's something fundamental with this culture that needs to be addressed, and that's the incommensurate part for me. That it's like, exponential at least.
But underneath it all is selling stuff. It's marketing.
Yeah.
It's all capitalism. That is, putting out this. You got to look a certain way. You got to buy a certain product. It's all being driven by economics.
Oh yeah.
I grew up in the 50s, but the 60s were pretty full of good ideas.
Yeah.
And it saved my ass being born and listening to like Mick Jagger saying, if you don't wear the same kind of shirts as I do, he's not cool. I mean,
Yeah.
the message was there everywhere.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to keep my head down and do good for myself, and now hopefully better for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But the information was there at that time.
Yeah.
There was a lot of it. Like, I'm still alive because I eat healthy. I'm still alive because I breathe from my heart. Those are things that people don't have these days. That information isn't there.
Well, it is.
I mean, it's massive.
It's, yeah. But, getting to it and acting on it and really putting in the work to live well, live healthfully, really gets lost, in
Yeah.
just the endless messages that are coming from social media. So I don't know what the cure is. I think that's up for the current generation to decide. Because I don't watch it. I mean, I have my selected categories on YouTube.
I just remember trying to be a hippie was really hard work.
Yeah.
You had to decide everything. You had to decide education, food, medicine, clothing, living, and all those things had to be rethought.
Yeah.
And it was
And there was a lot of experimenting back then.
yeah. And some of it was really weird, and some of it was unfortunate, but
most of those.
that kind of information, that breakthrough in the field of supposedly reality
Yeah.
was that's not happening. I look at Google News. I read every headline from health to entertainment to news to world. I just read the headlines,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so much information there, and I don't know if people it's there.
It's there.
It's pounding on us, but I think the idea of the image and the appearance and what you can own.
Yeah.
I've decided that everything I've bought turned out to be a huge prison around me now that I have to protect the security systems and I can barely leave my house because I'm successful.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
what a mess. I'm sorry, I was talking.
No, that's
The thing that keeps coming up for me is large families that are gone. When I was growing up, you guys are talking about consumer capitalism. I was growing up in the Soviet Union, not better as far as propaganda about how we're supposed to feel goes. That's not, but that was out there. And I was part of a family that got together regularly, lots of adults, that not just my exhausted parents, but lots of adults modeling ideas and discussing them, and cousins. That was what I was part of. So then I come into the United States at the age of 16. And somehow, for whatever historical reasons, even those parts of the family that came didn't coalesce into a family. And so I have lived my whole life alone, away from family influences, and being an immigrant makes it part of it because I wanted to be an American, and they were all immigrants, right? And it's just how you think when you're 16. But anyway, but even still, I have this attitude that, like, all those people who want image, for example, I'm an engineer and I'm with my people. I'm not out there with social media. I have never in my life wanted to look a certain way, right? So this upbringing that creates a tribe around you that we have completely lost. Most families are living alone. Most parents hire babysitters instead of having aunts and uncles that used to babysit me. And I think that the answer isn't so much less social media as more of the presence of those people who care for you. It takes a village.
Yeah.
Well, it's both. We need less social media because that counterweights all the things you're saying. about value that you get from your uncles and your aunts and your cousins, that your acceptance in a group. You know, I mean, the other thing we had in the 60s is we had affinity groups, or we lived in communes, where we could bounce these ideas off of our comrades that we, you know, trusted, who had the same sort of orientation. And this group functions in some of the same ways, because this is a place where we can come and talk about these things that are not, you know, mainstream conversations and have no commercial value.
No,
True that.
sorry, Mike.
Yeah. Anything, Kirk?
No, I'm gonna make my proposition.
No. Yeah, it's not easy. Not at all easy. It is. I would be the worst commercial for Zen practice.
It's much appreciated.
Well, we have a world of Sanchos now.
Yeah.
Everybody's preening in front of a camera.
Yeah.
I mean, just, you know, it's amazing. I've got a part of me that it's almost impossible to not know about any of it, but I heard a little bit about the people who's destroying their faces to look a certain way, but it doesn't surprise me because it's consistent with, you know, trying to look a certain way, be a certain way,
Yeah.
acceptance.
Well, I mean, certainly, you know, not new. We've had people who've abused plastic surgery forever,
Yeah.
and who will spend their last dime trying to look a certain way,
Yeah.
and feel that they, you know, it's necessary.
You did this thing.
But there are, unfortunately, statistics that talk about looks privilege, because good-looking people,
Yeah.
what we consider to be good-looking, that's defined
Tall
by
people too.
tall. There's just a certain dynamic that is a little bit
There's a cost of everything.
more successful than others. So, but is that? But the question about that is, what are you going to do with that? Because it's temporary. So you have these good looks, or you are good looking, and you may or may not have some privilege that goes along with that. But how do you use it? What are you doing with that privilege?
And can you access it even though you aren't, quote, good looking?
Yeah, I mean, why is it now? And that's the other side of it, is you're now told people that they don't have that privilege because of that list of barriers, and those of us on that side of that list, what do we do with that? Since that is equally as not real. So it's there's no end to the work that has to be done, no end to the challenges that have to be met, and not easy to do from any sort of realistic point of view, unless you're grounded in and come back to that foundation over and over again, which is what this practice is coming back to that foundation of reality, of your true self, over and over again, because that is also constantly changing, constantly moving. It's not a static state that you can accomplish of being this golden carp that has passed through all the nets. There's work to be done every minute of every day, and that's the responsibility. And so sorry, Zen will never be monetized by.
They're trying. One of the commentators, I can't remember, this woman in the records was saying, a golden carp passing through the nets doesn't stay there.
Nope.
They take off and go out and do, all their new fish things, right?
They do carp things.
Carp things. So, just because you're free of the nets doesn't really solve your life.
No, not at all. All right. Any final comments, questions, disagreements, discussions before we close? All right. Thanks, everybody. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. All right, a few announcements. Dharma Talk tomorrow from Yokoji, 11:30 on Zoom. Tune in if you have the chance. I have to find I need to find a guest speaker for the 25th. I'll ask Becca if she's available since she owes me. Because I have a Obon festival that day and that Sunday at Zanshuji. So that mega tea ceremony that's going on that weekend. Then we're still working our ways through the moving saga. So at this point, everything's waiting until World Cup is over.
No. So all that stuff came down.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, apparently it was only up for, I'm not sure why it was up. I'm sure why it's down. Anyways, access has been restored. I did talk to the leasing agent and they said everything is cool.
Cool.
She has the space, she wants to lease it to you. Go ahead, So I sent her a note saying, we were, pretty much clearing our way, but we were making a final decision next weekend. And hear back from her, but I'm pretty sure you have so much space, it'll be fine. And so once we make our decision, then hopefully I'll hear from her this week, and we go and then just
So we're voting next week.
Next Saturday.
Next Saturday, okay.
Is the best we can get month to month?
That's all she has. So we can't get any more than she has.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough call for me.
It's
I'll go with
it's a fleeting existence.
Think of it as moment to moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But please raise your objections next week. So
I'm not going to be here next week,
Oh,
so
you're
I'll
not?
say that would be the one thing.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to leave it in your hands.
Okay.
Well, the church also declined our proposal to be $500 a month.
Okay, so it's a done deal.
I will also not be here
What
next week.
about
The second one.
the Methodist church?
I'm going to look at them this week. But there were two problems with that. One is that they wanted to lock the doors, after we had, our initial letting people in, which just won't really serve us because we allow people to come and go. And second, that I'm not sure I don't think they had a place for Dokusan or Daisan. So I have to talk to them about that. But that upstairs room is very nice. It's well ventilated. It's well, open to the sun. So we would have a nice space for sure. And it's big enough if we do whatever we want to do.
It sounds like a sure thing on Florida.
Well,
You're talking
which
about,
one?
you're talking about the Methodist.
Methodist.
You're talking about the solo, the gallery.
Third Street, I mean, Pine Street.
Pine Street, okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
I'd say Pine Ave as well.
Okay.
As I would be in.
Okay.
So
All right.
casting proxy votes.
Well, okay.
Is that okay for you?
Kirk, any preference since you'll be on Zoom? We're not leaving you out of this decision.
Do you have a picture of the space at Pine Avenue for people who?
Oh, we can't
so
hear
that
you
they
for
don't
some
vote
reason.
blindly?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Okay. No, I've been listening, but I haven't seen any of the sites that you guys have proposed, so I'll leave it to your discretion.
Oh, let's bring pictures.
I don't have I've never seen the space upstairs.
Oh, so
Right.
okay.
Did you take pictures?
I did not.
I thought somebody took pictures.
I didn't think you-
I took pictures of everything except the second floor space because when we went there, there wasn't an offer.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
the very first time, she didn't let you guys go up there, but then when we came back, she was.
Okay, well, I'll try and I have time this week, so I'm gonna try and get over there,
Yeah.
take some pictures. She's not there. I'm gonna go over this afternoon just in case she's around, but it's a holiday weekend, so
Oh,
She's
who
not.
knows?
It's gonna be
That's
closed.
unlikely
yeah.
that she'd be around.
Okay, we'll get you some pictures, Kirk, and everybody else. So
Yeah.
let's see.
I mean, the spaces are kind of roughly comparable. They're big, relatively open areas, big, good sized, carpeted. And
Yeah.
daylight. Well, I know for sure the Methodist Church, yes, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the gallery is not as light. There are windows
Are you sure there are windows?
on the back
second
on the
floor?
back wall, facing the parking lot, not the front. There's a window on the front wall, but the front window looks down into the gallery. But there are windows to the outside on the back wall where the freight elevator is. Large, big windows.
Well, if we started, we don't like it, it's a month tenancy, we can just leave
We
it.
can find something else. But
No lease.
yeah, but yeah, let's get pictures and share.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe by next week we'll have something to look at.
yeah.
And hopefully more people will be here. All right.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Kirk.
When will be a movie